Hello, this is Pam. What you're about to see are the slides that I presented during a town hall meeting. Unfortunately, I'm not able to show you the actual recording of the meeting because I am not allowed to use the HOA equipment, nor is the CATCOM committee allowed to even assist me in recording anything. So the slides that you will see are the ones that were presented with a voiceover to hopefully represent what I said during the meeting. Thank you for your viewing. Now let's take a quick look at a little bit of my background. I spent 40 years in the electronic component industry, and I began my career at Texas Instruments with their Standard Products division. 18 of those years I spent doing custom and radiation hardened components for military and classified programs. During my career, I held high-level security clearances with the Department of Defense, NSA, and NATO. I was a U.S. representative to NATO on battlefield and night vision. I served on a JEDIC committee for gate arrays. I served on a DARPA panel and also the Joint Strike Fighter program. I was an executive vice president for a $100 million standard electronic component manufacturer with approximately 500 employees, 3 factories, and an international network of reps and distributors. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the acronyms that I just used, DARPA is the R&D agency of the Department of Defense. JEDIC is an industry organization that set the common standards for performance and operational standards for standard products throughout the industry. I was fortunate enough to serve as an HOA president in a community in Orange County, where I spearheaded a lawsuit against the developer, resulting in a $14 million award for homeowners. I also represented the residents of the city of Vista and negotiated a new lease accord for them with the city and property owners. I was active in successfully halting the construction of a new international airport in Orange County that was going to be built on the old El Toro Marine Air Station. I believe that it is important that not only the people who vote for somebody to serve on a HOA board, but for those who seek to serve on the board, have a clear understanding of fiduciary duty for an HOA. The following are definitions that are universally accepted. Duty of care. Board members must act with the same care and diligence a reasonably prudent person would use in a similar circumstance, and that includes overseeing the finances, common area maintenance, vendor contracts, and management. In other words, the buck stops with the HOA board, not with the management company. Duty of loyalty. Board members must prioritize the interest of the entire HOA community above their own interests. They need to avoid or disclose conflict of interests. They cannot use their position for personal gain and must make decisions to benefit the entire community and not select individuals. The duty of obedience. Board members must comply with the HOA's governing documents and the laws and statutes. They need to adhere to the board's bylaws, CC&Rs, and rules. They also need to comply with all state and local laws and statutes for HOAs and ensure enforcement of rules is consistent and fair. Now, the responsibilities that I believe support fiduciary duties. Financial stewardship, approving budgets, managing the reserves, ensuring transparent financial reporting. These are things that I do not believe are happening in our community now and that need to be restored. Communications, keeping homeowners informed and encouraging community involvement. Again, something that I believe needs to be improved upon and restored to our community. Enforcement, applying rules uniformly with due process for all violations. Common question that is always asked is, what committees do you serve on? As if you don't serve on a committee, you don't contribute to the community. I don't agree with that. I think that just being a good neighbor contributes to our community. But beyond that, here are a few examples of some things that I have done on a private basis that I believe has contributed to our community. When I first moved in, the LED speed signs had a flashing white hot orb. This orb could trigger seizures, migraines, and create disorientation. It was a danger to our community. So I contacted the then HOA president and manager and explained that this orb needed to be disabled and the reasons for it. And I received pushback. They didn't want to do it. So I pushed back harder because this was a danger to our community and put everybody in here in jeopardy. The result of me pursuing this was the orb was disabled. Then I was contacted by a resident because she had a problem that the handicap restroom in the clubhouse was taped off during COVID. The only stall that was open was just a regular stall, and she had a problem with that. She said that she had contacted management and got nowhere with it. So I contacted management and the HOA president again and explained the issue, that this was a violation of ADA and we could be fined for this, that the stall needed to be opened for the handicapped for both the women's and the men's restrooms. And it was. Then something that always bothered me. During the holidays, our clubhouse is so beautifully decorated in the holiday spirit, with the exception of something for our Jewish friends and neighbors for Hanukkah. That always bothered me, even though I am a Catholic and was also baptized Greek Orthodox. So one evening, I purchased some battery operated candles, went up to the clubhouse when nobody was there except for the maintenance crew, and put candles in the menorah, went over the proper procedure for lighting them so that our Jewish friends and neighbors would see that their faith was being respected. Last year, I went up to check on the menorah because Dennis was no longer with the RHOA, so I talked to Eugene to make sure that he knew the proper procedure for lighting the candles on the menorah. To my surprise, there were no candles, and actually, there wasn't even a proper menorah. So I contacted the staff and received pushback. So instead of pursuing it with the staff, I contacted the general manager and our HOA president, who readily agreed to meet with me, explained the situation, and rectified the problem so that our Jewish friends and neighbors would believe that their faith was being respected. Then, last summer, the Murrieta Fire Department launched a program called Water Watch. I got together with Chief Malloy and I obtained brochures and two lanyards and brought them in to the office and explained the program and also informed them that Chief Malloy had graciously volunteered to come to our facility and give a presentation on the program. This program was not only for the safety of the grandchildren that some of us bring to enjoy this pool during the summertime, but also because in a senior facility, a medical emergency can happen in an instant. So this program really added to the safety of our residents and their grandchildren. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened to the brochure or the lanyards that I brought because What I proposed was completely ignored. I was also contacted and informed that on the YouTube videos of the general session meetings, suddenly the closed captioning was disabled. So I contacted the general manager and the HOA president and explained this was a violation of ADA and that the closed captioning needed to immediately be reactivated. And it was. Then, when I asked the HOA if they could please make all of the court documents that involve the golf course litigation accessible to the residents, their answer to me was no, we're not going to do that. No explanation, just no. So I felt that because it is better for someone to see the original document than to try to rely on somebody's interpretation or spin, I go to the court website, I download the documents, a fee is charged for per page of the download, and I distribute those documents to the community. This includes the receiver's report, which details the financial information of the golf course. And I am very grateful to those residents who make their donations to help me achieve this. Because this is important information that affects all of us, that we should all have the opportunity to be able to view these public documents without a spin, without an interpretation. These documents are given to the HOA at no additional charge, so there's absolutely no reason why they should not be accessible to us. Then, if people will remember that a couple years ago, during an extensive heat wave, all of a sudden the HOA shut off the watering of our front yards. Now, they claim that they did not. However, we all know they did, and these are some pictures of the results of the damage that was caused. This damage was extensive and throughout our entire community, creating an unnecessary, significant expense to repair this damage. So I forced the issue because the HOA was unresponsive to complaints that they were receiving. Once I forced the issue, magically the watering started to happen again of our front yards. But the damage still occurred, and we still incurred a major expense to try to repair that damage. Because there has been so much misinformation, disinformation, and contradictory information that is spread throughout our community, I believe it's very important to provide and distribute critical information that can be independently fact checked, that impacts all of us homeowners, and that may even expose us to an unnecessary jeopardy. So, here are just a few examples.
Article 20 is in effect if we get hold of the property, period.
As you can see by the time and date stamp that is on this document that was recorded with the county, this previous statement that you just saw, Bruce Delfonso, our HOA president, make is completely not true. And every board member that was sitting on the dais next to him knew that what he was saying was not true. Since Article 20 is so important and has a financial impact on each and every homeowner in our community, I believe that it is very important to have a clear understanding and take a deep dive into this. So instead of just presenting my interpretation of Article 20, what I am doing is giving you both sides. I'm presenting you with what Daryl Hansen wrote in red with the approval of the board of directors and what was published in a colony newsletter. What is in blue is my opinion and what I believe is more accurate. But here are both sides of the coin for you to determine what you believe is most accurate. During my presentation at the town hall, I read all of the following. Instead of reading it, I'm leaving it up to you to take your time to read it without any voiceover. So the following slides will have no voiceovers whatsoever. Thank you. After reviewing treasurer's reports and the receiver's reports and the treasurer's presentation at general session meetings, I began to have this feeling that things weren't adding up. So what I did was I started to make a comparison, and I generated this spreadsheet, which showed me that things weren't adding up. Basically, one column is the receiver's report, which is filed with the court under penalty of perjury, and the dollar amounts are validated by the bank statements that are included in those reports. The next column is the treasurer's report that is published in the Colony News. And the furthest column, the last column, is what the treasurer presents during the general session meetings. As you can see, these three reports do not match up. They do not align. And I found a discrepancy of over $93,000 that are totally unaccounted for. I published this. I sent a copy to the HOA board members and the general manager and received absolutely no response. This is not financial reporting in a transparent and accurate manner. Where is this money? One of the court documents filed by the HOA attorneys in their motion to collect attorney's fees included their billing statement, and I started to go over it. And this is what I found. Over 31 charges to correct errors that they made to file a document that the court rejected. So they had to refile it. And so that resulted in us paying double. We paid twice for the same document to be filed. This is just one line item that I pulled out of that billing statement that shows what happened. So my question is, who's reviewing these bills before we're paying it? Because we just 31 times paid twice to file the same document due to the error that the legal firm made. Let's move on to what I believe my priorities will be if you elect me. The first priority, most important priority, I think, is financial stability of our community. We really don't know where we stand, but we need to. Then full disclosure and complete transparency that we don't have it right now. Compliance with the CC&Rs, laws, and statutes. Again, this is an area where we are lacking. And finally, removal of all the barriers that have been put in place that limit or prevent residents from participating or expressing their opinions. Transparency. There really has been very little transparency when it comes to the golf course. We really don't know what we're getting ourselves into. So I believe that there should be appraisals, both the land and the businesses. I believe we should know cost estimates for the renovation. There should be a plan B for the land use and the business operations. I don't even think that exists. What have been the legal costs for the litigation and the LLC? There should be a full disclosure of all past and current expenditures that the HOA has made regarding the golf course. And I also believe there should be a reevaluation of the special assessment amount based on what we discussed in Article 20, where the court has already issued a credit for the purchase. And then, most importantly, reserves. What is our current level of funding? That is a critical number. That is a predictor of whether or not there will be a special assessment needed if something should happen that is unforeseen. If our reserves are underfunded, the odds of a special assessment go up substantially. So that number should be reported every month by the treasurer. However, that number has been missing every single month and has never, to my knowledge, been reported by the treasurer. There also needs to be a full disclosure of the total amount of funds per project that has come out of each reserve account. I believe that we are all entitled to full disclosure of the budget and that we should be able to obtain a copy of the budget by line item and description. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen. You could say, well, gee, go to the office and ask for a copy. I can tell you right now, you won't get it. My efforts to obtain a line item budget with description wound up with the HOA attorneys saying, if she wants a copy of the line item budget, she can just file a lawsuit. Then we go to review the general ledger, and we find that it has been highly redacted, not for confidentiality reasons. Plus, we don't even know what the general ledger account numbers actually stand for because we are unable to see a line item budget with general ledger account numbers. Vendor contracts. Review all vendor contracts. We don't know what is in these contracts. Are our expectations too high? Or are the vendors not meeting the expectations that are guaranteed in the contract? We don't know. There should be a full disclosure of all cost overruns and contingency expenses. We really don't know how much a project contract actually winds up costing us. We know what the bid amount is. We know that a contingency has been also approved, which is a good business practice. But what's lacking is we never know if that contingency is used. And if it is used, how much of it was used and why was it used? Because of all of this, and to obtain financial stability, I believe that all non-essential projects should be put on pause until we can do a complete review of this. Something that I believe must happen, and that is full compliance with the CC&Rs and protection of residents' rights. Full compliance with Davis Sterling statutes, and full compliance with executive session limitations. No more conducting business behind closed doors that isn't allowed to be conducted behind closed doors. This is Article 1, Section 10, taken directly from our CC&Rs with emphasis that I added. The title is Capital Expenditure or Capital Improvement. Please, I beg you to take time to read this carefully and understand it because this pertains to any and all projects that may be approved by the HOA board. The following is taken directly from our CC&Rs. Article 7, Section 8. Limitations on board action. The board shall be prohibited from taking any of the following actions, except with the vote or written consent of a majority of the voting power of the association. Article 7, Section 8.2. Incurring aggregate expenditures for capital improvements to the common area in any fiscal year in excess of 5% of the budgeted gross expenses of the association for that fiscal year. This provision applies to capital improvements only and does not apply to repairs and replacements. For your convenience and for clarification, I put the definition of aggregate, a whole by combining several elements. Now that we've read the CC&Rs and we know what the board must legally adhere to, let's take a look at the patio project. The patio project, as presented by Pat Kite on January 30th, 2025, does not conform to CC&R repair or replacement definition. The projected costs for the work, as presented, were completely omitted. The CC&R article that you just read, Article 7, Section 8.2, strictly requires a vote of the entire HOA membership to proceed for any expenditure exceeding 5% of the gross operating budget, which is estimated at a little over $300,000 maximum. Now, a few years ago, there was a project called the Pool Pavilion, and that total project was roughly around $700,000. And some of that project was rightfully from the reserves. But even with that, it required a membership vote. After reading the CC&Rs and knowing what must and must not happen, let's go over some false and misleading statements that we were given during the patio project meeting on January 30th, 2025. We don't know how expensive yet, but it will be more than $500,000 and probably up towards $1 million, quote unquote, Pat Kite. We're probably going to have to phase this in over a couple of years, quote unquote, Pat Kite. Much of it, if most of it's going to come out of our reserve funds, quote unquote, Pat Kite. As we go through a partial overview of the patio project, again, keep in mind the CC&Rs that you've just read. The concrete is to be expanded and reconfigured. The patio cover is to be demolished and expanded. The fountain planter area that is currently there is to be demolished and removed. A fireplace area is going to be added. The pool fencing is to be reconfigured and expanded. This entire patio project, as explained by the HOA, is not the description of repair and replace for reserves. It is, however, the definition of capital expenditure, which requires a vote of the entire membership. The following statements are taken directly from the transcript of the general session meeting of April 17th, 2025, that was conducted by Kathy Stevens in the absence of Bruce Delfonso. We just approved part of the contract to get us all the way through the construction documents, going to the city, getting our permits, quote unquote, Kathy Stevens. Hopefully, by this fall, we should be in the dirt, quote unquote, Kathy Stevens. Now, granted, the HOA does not need any approval to prove part of a contract for construction documents. However, why are we spending time and money going to the city to get permits for something that we know our CC&Rs are going to require a vote of the entire membership? Let's move on to what I think have been some excessive spending. And here are just five recent examples. More than $15,000 on kitchen equipment, more than $6,000 on a bike rack, $900 on a conference phone, when we just spent how many tens of thousands of dollars to replace the entire phone system? And then here's something. How many hundreds of thousands of dollars have we spent on this auditorium, lighting, sound, and cameras? I believe that's a violation of the CC&Rs. Don't get me wrong. I think we deserve best in class amenities in our community. However, I think that professional grade equipment is excessive. And then let's not forget all of the attorney's fees that we spend each time we want to change a rule. Because every time something is changed in the rules or added, it has to go to the attorneys for approval. And it seems to me like that is being done now on a monthly basis. To me, this is excessive. And during the May board meeting, they approved a contract of $48,400 plus contingency on top of that for website design and 1 year of annual maintenance for the website. Jim Morgan even explained that they looked for the most cost-effective way to accomplish all of the needs of the HOA for a website, and this was the most cost-effective way to do it. Really? There are HOA website hosting companies that include firewall security, online payment access, secure resident portals, where the HOA is in full control. They have pre-designed templates. All you have to do is choose the template that you like and just upload your information. A quick 2-minute Google search produced the following results. You can see their most expensive package is $66.60 per month, but that's for 2,500 households. So since we only have less than 1,600, that would be less than about $66, $65 a month. Kind of cheaper than 48,000 for a website design. Again, choose what features you want, choose your template, upload your information. Their most expensive package, $149 a month. Most expensive package here, $2,400 for the entire year. Again, this was just a very quick Google search. So I don't think that they really did look for the most cost-effective way. Do you? So here's my plan on what I would like to accomplish if you choose to elect me to the board. In the first 3 months, I want to review all expenditures and financials and report back to you, the membership. I want to review all vendor contracts and again report back to you, to the membership. Review all projects and priorities and report back to you. Remove all of the barriers to homeowners' comments and retain the YouTube videos so that you can view them in the future at your convenience. I would also like to initiate a rule that the board must respond within 15 days to any homeowner question or comments that don't require board action. Also, during those first 3 months, I want to ensure that the CC&Rs, laws, and statutes are fully complied with. I would like to add a manager's report to all general session meetings. I really found it kind of puzzling that that doesn't exist in this HOA because there's always been a manager's report given during the general session meetings in every single HOA I've ever lived in. I want to ensure that financial reports are distributed and that they are no less than 2 months old, with 1 month being the goal. Right now, we don't receive financial reports that are under 3 to 4 months old. I want to add resident questions as a last item at the end of a general session meeting. And this doesn't mean that the member comment section at the beginning of the meeting would be omitted, because a lot of members want to ask a question or express a concern, but not sit through an entire meeting and wait to do that. So you have a small block of time for them to do that at the beginning of the meeting. And then you have a block of time at the end of the meeting in case a resident needs to have some clarification about what just happened in a general session meeting or ask a question about something that just happened in a general session meeting. The session meetings should also accommodate the residents. During the first 6 months, I would want a full understanding of the true financial condition of our community. I think we need to prioritize a project and expenditures and make cuts or delay some projects where appropriate based on the financial condition. Remove the barriers to homeowner involvement and participation. Initiate and enact a rule that limits the changes to any rules to a maximum of twice a year instead of monthly. And I'd like to initiate a project to install fail-safes on all of the gates to our community. Also, in the first 6 months, I want to have a comprehensive evaluation and analysis of the golf course and report to the membership so we actually know what we're getting into here. And that would include a business and land appraisal by two separate companies, a comprehensive cost analysis of the renovations from two separate companies, full accounting of all HOA expenditures involving the golf course, a complete disclosure of LLC, including all the organizational documents and monies that have been spent, a review and audit of all associated legal fees, not only for the golf course, but for the LLC and anything else that involved the golf course. Also, during those 6 months, I'd like us to confer with legal counsel to try to find some sort of settlement options that would be viable so we can have closure to this and move forward. We need to also explore and generate land use options with a focus on what this is going to cost the HOA in the future. This would be a perfect opportunity to put an announcement out to all of the residents saying that an advisory committee is being formed, and if you'd like to be on it, submit your name. And then after the first year, I think we need to all sit down, evaluate what is working and what is not working, and make the appropriate adjustments. And I believe we need to open up all the committees to encourage more homeowner involvement. I keep hearing the term team player being thrown out there, but it all depends on what your definition of a team player is. A team player, to me, is not someone who goes along to get along or rubber stamps what a dominant member wants, even if they might have some doubts of their own. I found a definition that I kind of agree with, and that is a team player is someone who identifies problems and issues and suggests solutions, contributes their skills and expertise to achieve goals, and works for the greater good. My vision, if elected, for this community is to have a robust and secure financial future with the best in class amenities and have it an all-inclusive community. And that includes financial stability, full transparency, responsiveness to all residents, accountability for all actions, protecting the residents' right, encouraging resident participation, and fully complying with all of the legal laws, statutes, and our governing documents. I want to thank you for the time that you have spent to look at this presentation. I truly would appreciate your vote because together I think that there is so much that we can accomplish and put our community back on a good, safe, financially secure track. Thank you very much.